Hey, this is Dave with Rough Notes Magazine. We're all about helping agents and brokers thrive, and we're impressed with what you're doing. Can we feature you and your team on our front cover?
Tell me the feeling you first had when you found out that your agency was going to be on the cover of Rough Notes Magazine.
Well, I was in a bar at the time, but it was lunchtime. It's not what you're thinking. It just so happens I was on spring break with my family up in Sun Valley, Idaho, which is a ski town. And we were just at our favorite dive bar, Grumpy's, having a delicious burger when I got the message. And first I did like a half kneel, like giant fist pump. And then I stood up and got a little teary because it's a big deal, Jason. This is something we have wanted for years. And it is such a dang honor. It was unreal. And I know Clint and Bryan shared the same feeling, just like awe and pride and gratitude.
Clint, what do you think? What was your feeling?
So I was literally sitting right in this chair. I got the notification, and like I said, I'm the old dog of the agency at the ripe age of 51. And so, you know, it used to be when I was starting, I started as an agent in 2000, and Rough Notes was like our mentor, right? I was a small agency. We didn't have like a lot of good folks that were, you know, we didn't have Jason Cass doing podcasts and educating and, you know, all these different tools. So Rough Notes was the go-to, right? So I've been reading Rough Notes since day one, going, well, how are they doing this? How are they doing that? And, you know, been watching Agency of the Month for years, never thinking that we'd ever be able to grace the cover of it, you know? So literally goosebumps as I'm even talking about it at this moment. It's surreal for me.
Bryan?
I thought about damn time. Because I've always known how awesome this agency can be and how great we are. And it's cool seeing, especially someone from Idaho, which is a state that gets confused with Iowa far too often, to get some national recognition. So, but obviously very excited and very honored, thrilled to be a part of this publication. So it was great.
So, so everybody introduce yourself real quick, if you could, and what you do for the agency. You don't normally have three people on a podcast, but I think that's what makes this special for a special agency. Emily, introduce yourself and who you are and what you do.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Emily Koleno, Director of Operations for Associated Insurance, and I've been here almost 12 years. I started in customer service, new to the insurance industry, but not brand new to risk management insurance in a broader sense, because my very first job was in risk management for a ski resort. And I started in customer service here, did that for a couple of years, then went into sales for a couple of years, and then transitioned into managing operations. And from there, it just has kind of blown up and grown into a big job where I take care of most things in the agency that don't fall under sales. Clint and Bryan handle the sales.
Yes. And I have to tell you, Bryan, before you tell us who you are, Rough Notes listeners out there, this is an exciting, every agency is picked for a certain reason, but the growth in the culture of this business is something I really want you to latch onto. Now, Bryan, tell them who you are.
So Bryan Graham. I'm the Forest Products Director for the agency, which essentially means that I deal with the logging program and insurance for the insurance agency. I started out with the company kind of as an intern janitor type of employee back when I was in high school. Worked part-time through college, got licensed about halfway through that, and has been a producer ever since. And so, this company is kind of my entire life career. At this point, I've never worked another job besides YMCA ref for, I think, 7-year-olds at one point in time, which I'll never do again. Not a fun job. But yeah, been doing this for going on about 16 years now, I believe, at this point, and something I'm really passionate about and love, and especially like working with our logging contractors and all that stuff that we do here.
Bryan, what sport?
It was basketball.
Oh man.
Yeah, I played basketball my whole life and thought I might know how to referee it, and then realized that I didn't even know the most basic motions you're supposed to make with your hands for the right calls. And it was overwhelming, and yeah, didn't like it. It's not going to do it again.
And 7-year-olds are tough. That's like herding cats.
It is. Yeah, you don't know if you should call them for traveling after running 5 steps, or if you just give them a break. It's 8.
It's 8 is the cutoff.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So Brian's out there blowing whistles, throwing flagrants and stuff on 7-year-olds. Clint, tell us about you.
It's our new sales producer training, so that we run everybody through the 7-year-old referee. So, Clint Paskewitz, been with the Associated since 2010. I'm the commercial risk director here, so anything that falls outside of the forest products division falls under my wheelhouse over here in the other corner. And been doing it, like I said, since 2000. Prior to that, I was a commercial underwriter with W.R. Berkley Companies, and they brought me out to the great state of Idaho and from Minnesota, and been here since 97. So
still got a little bit of Minnesota.
Oh, yeah, sure. You betcha. I can do that. I can bring it out whenever I need to, you know.
I love it. I love it. I can really see the culture, and I hope you can too, Rough Notes listeners. Good group of people. Ever since we got on, we've been laughing. I always like to say, it makes it sound official, back in the green room. You know, I mean, believe me, there was no chips and no beer back there. But yeah, we were there talking before. So Bryan, I want you to lead this, start this off, because really, I mean, you come in. I want you to explain. I kept hearing this name whenever you talk about your business, but talk about this reciprocal. Yeah, I need to get a little bit of history, because the Rough Notes listeners, you want to pay attention, because all this starts merging together to create this greatness they have here. But could you start us off, Bryan?
Yeah. So we came from the Associated Loggers Exchange. That's who our parent company is, which is a reciprocal insurance company for workers' comp coverage in Idaho and Montana as well. They were originally started by a large group of logging contractors back in 1979 because they needed a more reasonable and consistent workers' comp market for the types of work that they were doing, which was obviously extremely high hazard, high risk types of operations out there, with a lot of employees on the ground cutting trees and skidding logs and all that kind of stuff. And so they started this insurance company, and they went along for quite a few years there and had several different outsourced producers that they worked with, whether it be Marsh & McLennan at one point in time and some other agencies along the way. And eventually in 2005, they decided that they wanted to bring their agency in-house. They didn't feel as though they were getting the representation that they wanted out of the agency they were working with at that time. So they actually enlisted my mom as the agent and manager to take on that project. She had previously worked with the logging contractors for many years before she sold out her share in the agency she had previously owned. And so they sucked her back into the business again, and she found another producer who had no prior insurance experience. He had actually been the safety director for the Associated Logging Contractors in Idaho. His name was Dan Musselman, and he had been a logger himself. And so she convinced him to try his hand at insurance, and the two of them kind of started it all off from there. And like I mentioned, in high school, they got me in doing some certificates of insurance and cleaning the toilets and the types of things that I was capable of doing at that point in time. And it's all kind of slowly progressed from there. We started out just doing the workers' comp coverage originally for the loggers, but they quickly decided that they wanted us to be a full service agency for them. So we went ahead and added the package lines of business to what we were offering. So started doing the auto and general liability and everything else to go along with it. And once we got a good handle on that side of things, we decided that in order to continue to be a viable agency and competitive in the marketplace, we needed to expand our offerings even outside of the logging industry itself. And that's about the time in 2010 when I met up with Clint at one of the Big I meetings down in Sun Valley, Idaho. And he had quite the reputation at that point in time, not just for drinking beer, but also
Yeah, I could do that. Let's go.
Or something. It's worth something.
You got to be able to do both. And so my mom and I started having conversations with Clint at that point in time, and he eventually bought into what we were doing because he liked what we had going on here and everything, and he became the expansion of the agency into the other lines of business for us. So that's kind of the background history of things up to where we found Clint in our diversification. And I don't know if you want him to kind of take some.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Clint.
Yeah. So actually it was 2006 was my first interaction with Tony Graham. And she had just started the agency, and she had called me up, but I had just signed on as a very small partner of another local agency here in town. And I knew about this logging place, but didn't know a whole lot about it. And fast forward to 2010, when I met Bryan. At that time, we had obviously gone through we were heavily into the Great Recession by that point in time. And our agency that I was with wasn't producing the profit levels that we did at one time. And when the profit wasn't there, I started to look at my future partner of who it was going to be. I was like, I don't know if this is quite the right fit. And we just happened to meet Bryan at that time. And we got through a conversation. And at the time, I don't know if I was the young agent chair or not. We were at a Big I convention, Jason. And we had started chatting, and we got back, and we started having conversations a little bit deeper at that point in time. And I'm literally not knowing any intentions of going to associate it. I'm just telling Bryan, as a young agent, you need to look out for this. I'm just puking all over him with advice on things to look out for. And so that conversation, I guess he appreciated my honesty, I guess. And we went from there to talking with Tony, and I joined up in November of 2010. And, we were almost a scratch agency. I think we were under $500,000 in total revenues at that point in time when I joined, which a lot of people would probably think was just absolutely insane and crazy to move from a potential of ownership, right, to go into this. But I looked at it from a different perspective. We sat down when I sat down with Tony and John, and we kind of got the direction and the future layout of what they had planned for this agency. I loved the idea. I'm in sales, right? And here we have an exclusive workers' comp company that wants to diversify from logging into all these other categories, right? And I've got Idaho, I've got Montana, and it's an exclusive workers' comp program that nobody else has. And it's a dividend program on top of it, because policyholders are the owners on a non-assessable basis, right? And so, I'm thinking from a sales standpoint, this is fabulous. I got the best tool, in the country to do that. And so we did, and we went to work and focused on the workers' comp to start out. And then as we built that, then we started cross-selling, right, and getting the package and growing that side. And then over time, we built the agency up to where we are today. So that's kind of fast forward 14 years.
I love that. A lot to be learned there, from saying, hey, I could give up this ownership position to going to this other position, which is probably going to end up with ownership anyways. But it has to do with the fact that you took that position to say, hey, I'm going to give up this and go this route. There's a lot to be learned from that, because I think there's way more agency owners that should not be agency owners than probably agency owners that are. And that's no disrespect. That just has to do with the fact that we're independent, right? We feel as if we can do something better. And most of us have. But just until recently was I able to make more money on my actual taxes that I had to than I did in 08 and 09. Those were my last 2 years I was a producer. I never made more until about, I think it was 01, I think it was 21, 22, something, I can't remember, that I actually made more than that. And I tell that to my young guys and gals who work for me and who are upcoming owners. Like, this is not all cherries over here. You know what I mean? There's a lot of times where I decide who was getting paid, me or them, right? It was always them. sorry, I don't want to take away from that, but that was some good stuff right there, Clint. I hope a lot of people heard that and then they witness who you are today. Miss Emily?
Yeah, I was going to just chime in on sort of what you were just talking about there, Jason. One thing that's super unique about our agency is that we three are not owners. We're owned by the loggers. We're owned by Associated Loggers Exchange, which is owned by its policyholders.
Gotcha.
And what's really awesome about that is that we just have different motivation. You know, we're not in it for the profit that the agency brings in at the end of the year. So it's always been our strategy to purposely have only a single-digit profit margin at the end of the year because we want to reinvest our income into growing the business, into taking care of the clients better by having better processes and tools and tech, and into taking care of the employees so that they stick around and they've got awesome benefits and strong compensation packages and just taking care of them. That's part of our culture.
Totally part of your culture. And Emily, before I want to know how you came into this to let them understand, but I love it. Attracting employees comes easily to us. Having a strong interview process, our position, values, quality, teamwork, and positivity. I want to bring bright and motivated, and we want them to be a part of a team. That was something that you actually that was you quoting. Something that you said earlier in the interview process or something. And I highlighted that. I loved that because I could tell in the words before and the words after how much you mean and live by that. So tell us about you and your beauty and when you came into this thing.
Sure. Yeah. So I touched on how I started in risk management for a ski area, did that for a few years, and then started here with the agency in 2010. Started here with the agency in 2012. And was in customer service for a couple of years, then sales for a couple of years, and then moved on into operations.
All right. And you're a little bit more than that because I think that, don't you believe that Clint and Bryan, that you guys were lacking in a lot of the culture, or was that something you guys felt strong, or was Emily a major player in that?
Oh, let me give a great example. So before Emily came, my email address was paskewitz.assoc70@insuremail.net.
You got to be
okay. That was one of our first things that we all addressed.
Yeah, we have not even talked about this. I literally just thought of that when she was talking about that one. You remember that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. We didn't have a website when I joined. At least I got the website started. Emily took it to a whole new level, including our email address. So. Yeah.
Well, I find that we all have these ideas, especially as sales minded people. We have these ideas, they just never get done, right? And that's the beauty of an Emily. That's the beauty of a Mitch 100%. Gibson in my agency. That's the beauty of the way their minds work is not like us, right? And so then you just get to finally see all that together.
You get those little problems, right, Jason, no matter what they are from an operational standpoint. And, no disrespect to me, but there's no way that I'm going to get that solution implemented the way that Emily can. She just got the ability to get stuff done. I'll keep it polite, but she gets stuff done in our agency quickly, efficiently, and operationally it's better when she's done with it. So
yeah, it all starts with just that. Yeah, well, I know it's true. It all starts with the sale, Bryan. And one of the things that's really, really awesome about you guys, and I think is just something we've talked about a lot in the industry that you seem to live by, is the NICHE, right? The niche of understanding that, like, hey, I'm really good with this, and I can exploit this because a lot of other people aren't. They don't really care about it. But talk a little bit about it, and I want you to tie it into, I've got it highlighted here, these ridiculous loss ratios that you guys have. So give the listeners a little bit of overview of how you got into logging.
Yeah, so just naturally being that we're owned by the logging contractors in Idaho and in Montana, of course, that's kind of been our initial focus for the agency and everything. And starting back it must have been around 2012 or so, we had kind of noticed some shifting in the marketplace as to what insurance companies were still going to hang in there with us and write the non-workers' comp lines of business of insurance for these logging contractors. And we started tracking all of our own in-house data, basically, because we worked through several MGAs and other direct carriers. and we couldn't consolidate their data into a one single kind of program snapshot of what our agency specifically was accomplishing, which we knew was good, but we needed to be able to quantify it. And so we started tracking all that data back in 2012. And from there, essentially, every time a marketing rep from any insurance company, it didn't matter who it was, came in, we asked them first, do you write loggers? And typically the answer was no. And then we said, do you want to write loggers? And the answer was no again.
Hell no.
And then we said, but what about if you write them at a 35% loss ratio, like we've historically been performing at over the past however many years? And so it was those conversations where, it perked their interest, but there was just always an excuse or a reason as to why they weren't willing to do it. And so we eventually, determined that we had to find a way to come up with a program of our own and outline the bones of what this would look like and what product offering it would be and what states it would be offered in and everything. And Clint will probably talk about the Beyond Insurance network group later on, the BIGN. But eventually, Clint and I went to one of their meetings over in Minneapolis, and we met up with a broker out of from London that works for CJ Coleman, and we were kind of talking. Clint was actually talking to him about it at that point in time, about our logging niche and everything. And he said, well, there's a programs division available through the Lloyd's marketplace, so we need to see if this is something that could potentially be a fit. And I believe that was in 2020, if I'm remembering. 2019. It was pre-COVID. Yep.
It was October. Yep.
And so we started the conversations with them, and about exactly 2 years later, in 2021, we had the structure and outline to what we now call the Axe Insurance Group, which is a logging insurance program that's currently offered to Idaho and Montana logging contractors. And it's based off of our own underwriting philosophy. I'm the underwriter for it, essentially. And we use the services of the safety guys in both Montana and Idaho associations to be our boots on the ground and eyes out there to tell us who should be a part of the program and who shouldn't. And we use that very closely to try to maintain these loss ratios that we've accomplished in the logging industry over the past pretty much 10 years or so, based on how far our data goes back at this point. And it's been over 2 years now of running the Axe Insurance Group. And it's the first year, the 2022 contract year is pretty much totally closed out and in the books at this point, fully developed at a 35% loss ratio, exactly what we told them we were shooting for. And they're very happy with those results. And we're hoping to continue that trajectory with them moving forward here and have a successful long-term program and solution for the loggers here in the Northwest, eventually expanding into Oregon and Washington to give them the opportunity to be a part of what we've put together here. So we're really excited about the future expansion plans, and everything seems to be really going very, very well.
Good luck to you on that. That is awesome, Bryan. So what was he talking about, Clint? What was he talking about this, what was it, network that you have or something like that?
Yeah, it's
Beyond Insurance or something.
You've heard of Scott Addis, I'm sure, and he runs the Beyond Insurance Global Network. And like I said, I was an early adopter of Rough Notes, and no kidding, after I met Scott, went back to a Cincinnati kind of sales event with him and got to have dinner with him, and literally rode on a bus with him, and just had a great opportunity to meet the guy. And he invited us to one of their exchanges in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the last quarter of 2019. And we went back there, and Bryan and myself, and got to experience what the network was all about. And you know how this game works. I mean, Jason, you're one of the best, collaborators in the industry, right? You learn by having these types of conversations, right? Who knew that, an independent agency could be a cover holder with the Lloyd's of London on an exclusive program, right? I mean, and we wouldn't have known that if we had not, been a part of that network and other agencies and those strategic partners that they're a part of, to know that we could even accomplish something like that. So that kind of, 2019 kind of kicked us off from that standpoint, and kind of changing our direction as an agency. And, who's some of these large brokerages that you're talking about? Like, bring them. Like, we can compete with the biggest, baddest, and the best in the country because, we're part of the best, and whether it's the Big I, that has been a great collaboration tool along with the Big N, it's people, and it's absorbing from the mentors that, we're following, absorb from them as much as you can and take that advice and apply it to your situation and go be your own badass in whatever sector that you're doing to be the best that you can be, and that's where the network's been for me and for our agency, in my opinion.
I love it. That so much juice there. Emily, now one of the things I think that I'm not sure exactly, somebody said it in here and I'll talk about it later, but I think it has to do with, you talk about volunteerism, you talk about trying to be somebody in the community, but also the way that you create this culture is what I want to say. Tell me about that. I mean, it doesn't come easily. It's one of those things that I think agents like yourself that understand the importance of it are taking grasp. But I think a lot of agents, like, their eyes roll back in their head and they're like, oh my God, I don't want to talk about this. But it's like key in today's world. Tell us about it, Emily.
Yeah, the culture is the reason why we have the awesome team that we have and the people that have stuck around for years with us. We've got very low turnover and awesome employee tenure and loyalty. And it was right around 2018, 2019, the time that we joined the Beyond Insurance Group. And that was also the time that we started using the EOS traction system, which I know you featured on many of your earlier podcast episodes, Jason. Both the Beyond Insurance Global Network and using EOS have just put structure and form around what we do and how we do it and the cadence with which we have meetings and the agendas we're following in those meetings. And it was as simple as, it was during COVID, I remember, because we met in a park. We were sitting on park benches. We were outside in the, open air kind of meeting setting. Bryan, Clint, and I sat down and came up with our list of company core values by looking at our organization and our best people and saying, if we could clone these 2, 3, 4 awesome people, what would that look like? And what are the qualities that they have that they're awesome at that we want to emulate and can push on? What are the true values that we already have that we want to identify and then grow more and more? And we started off with 5 core values at that point in time. And just last year, whittled that down. So now we're just down to our 3 core values: quality work, teamwork. And we really seriously mean that. And we have new employees comment on this often, where they're like, you always get sold a good story by a new company when you come in. But here, I just had somebody say this to me like 2 weeks ago at her first review. She said, here, you actually mean it. People actually care about each other and help each other. And when I'm having a bad day or I'm struggling with something, I can just basically look up and say, can someone help me? And 2 people will be like, hey, what do you need? What can I do? Teamwork is critical. And then positivity is kind of wraps it all up. I think that the insurance world has been known for, in kind of the olden days, has a bit of a negative rap, and that's not us. We're a positive organization. We're positive people, and those 3 core values are the foundation of our culture. And we keep up our culture with silly things like in teams, chatting in teams and throwing out jokes and just sharing things about our personal lives there, nothing too personal, but sharing real stuff with each other. And we're true friends with our coworkers, and we really support each other.
Teams is such an amazing thing for exactly that. I mean, the listeners do, and just from being on here, I'm a goofy person, and that's how I lead. Insurance is fun, right? And I'm always sharing funny stuff. I'm very serious sometimes, meaning I want them, if I read something, I want them to focus on it. And it's really that, you're so right about that, Emily. Just the littlest thing. You said something that was really good here. And I love this because I think sometimes it's like sales. We got to prospect. We got to find a customer. Service. We got to make sure that they get the things in a timely fashion. But also it's important to understand what a director of operations is, right? It's somebody who manages the general business operations, the HR, the finance, compliance, marketing, IT, manage employee benefits and personal lines, learning to delegate. That's really what's interesting. And what's really interesting is you do that remotely. And I love that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one thing that I know a lot of other businesses have found this to be true as well.
Have you always been that way, or has it just been since COVID?
Just since COVID, exactly.
Okay,
I was just gonna mention that exact thing. Most of us moved to working remotely for a period of time during COVID, and we learned that some people thrived in that setting, and some people didn't, but some people thrived there and could even maybe be a little more productive. There are fewer interruptions, fewer distractions going on when you're working from a home office setting. So in 2022, my husband got a new job in Bend, Oregon, which is Central Oregon, about a 5.5-hour drive from Boise, where we were living at the time. And I brought the question to Bryan and Clint saying, hey, I think our family might be making a move. What do you think about me doing this job remotely? And we put our heads together. It wasn't Clint's first choice. Seeing his face there. But, excuse me, but it's been good. It's enabled us to keep awesome employees. And I'm not just talking about, I don't mean to say that about myself, but like just awesome employees throughout our organization who've needed to move for whatever reason. It seems to come up every 6 months or something. Somebody's making a move, and it enables us to keep our best employees part of the team, and they can just work where life is taking them. So a third of our employees today are remote, like myself. There are 27 of us, and a third of us are remote.
Taking the politics out of it, taking the negative out of it, COVID was so instrumental in changing businesses in so many ways, right? In ways that just one simple thing in business and in life, we judge everything. Clint, you said it a minute ago. Bryan didn't know when that started. You said started before COVID, right? Our brains immediately go, oh, that was before COVID. It must have been like 18 or something. You know what I mean? When we're thinking of something, it's amazing that way.
BC.
And then being able to find out that this really does work. People do work better from home, but some people, and it's not that you work bad in a team environment, but some people work better in a smaller, closed, whatever environment it could be. Also, people need it for extra, just to be able to support their family and not be thinking about that stuff during the day all the time, knowing that they're needed. So all of those things. But Emily, it kudos to you on all the things you're doing, because it's very, very hard. There's no doubt. Running the operations, and I know sometimes you kind of get the fall all, like, yeah, no one can handle this. Hey, let's give it to Emily. Emily will for sure get it taken care of. And whenever I do speaking engagements, I always talk about the fact that the real people that are making things happen are those behind the scenes that no one sees, right? It's just like any business. And so kudos to you.
Thanks,
you guys are super excited for getting this. I want to close out with a couple minutes from each of you, if we could. A couple of things I want to throw out is that when I was younger, I used to skate, and I lived in Washington. I lived right north of Everett in Lake Stevens, Washington. And so I went to Sun Valley like 2 times over in Idaho to do some skiing. There's also a Sun Valley, I think, in Arizona. I think I remember when I was younger, I was like confused. My dad was like, no, one is this one. Anyways, another story. The other time, the Big I was up in Coeur d'Alene. I spoke up there. I think, didn't you guys happen to see me speak? Were you there, Clint? Yeah. What was that? 13, 14?
We go back and forth, so it's hard to say, but it was before COVID.
It was before COVID, right?
PC.
It was before COVID, but there's no other milestone that you can go, It was after that one. I guess maybe the recession, but that was a good time up there. That was, my wife travels with me on a lot of these, and that was the one she couldn't travel to. And man, I was just blown away how beautiful that place is. I still tell people it's one of the most beautiful places I've been to in America so far. It's absolutely gorgeous. I know.
We're growing enough, Jason. We got people.
It's incredible. It's incredible. It really, truly is. It really, truly is.
That's where our northern Idaho office is located, is in Coeur d'Alene.
Oh God, it's beautiful. And they've got the floating green there, right? And one of the most amazing things to me, we'll get back to this, each of you guys, please, but this is really great because I tell my friends about this and that are golfers on that. You have somebody who runs with you, like your caddy literally runs with you. And so after everybody hits, he just takes off running as fast as he can to the ball. And he'll look up and go, 157, run to the other ball, I mean, it took me a while to go, this is unbelievable. And he does it for 18 holes. I was blown away. Now, he works so hard, he gets a heck of a tip, right? It's 4 hours of running. You feel guilty not just giving this guy everything you have, and then you're half drunk at the end, so you probably did. Anyways, okay, let's get back to what we were supposed to. Apologize, Rough Notes listeners. Bryan, closing it out for us, man. Give us a couple minutes, of something maybe you want to say to close this out.
Yeah, I mean, kind of something Emily touched on earlier, just about the perception of the insurance industry and things like that. And I know it seems like it's maybe difficult to get younger people interested in it and everything, but I mean, it's a great industry, especially when you do start younger. I mean, I'd certainly never advise anyone not to go to college first, because that's a great experience as well. But, it's maybe not as perceptually sexy as some of the other options out there when you got your big dreams coming out of college, but it's really an underrated industry at that. And I mean, I can say that with conviction, because like I said, I started when I was 18 years old. And, it was something my parents did, and whatever your parents are doing when you're 18 years old doesn't seem that cool. And I'm sure at that point in time, I still think I wanted to be on SportsCenter. That was my pie in the sky goal, which I knew was realistically never going to happen. And I started getting into the insurance world, and it was great. I mean, there's flexibility. You can make of it what you want of it. I never would have imagined that I'd be doing what I'm doing now within this industry. One cool thing about the cover holder program that we've got through Lloyd's is I've gotten the opportunity to go travel back to London on a couple of different occasions and visit the Lloyd's of London building and kind of see where insurance started, essentially, not specifically that building, but in London itself. They've moved a couple of times since then. But I mean, it's a great industry. And, people that aren't in insurance probably aren't necessarily listening to this podcast. But it's something to convey to your kids and to, the other people out there at career fairs and stuff like that, that this is something you should really consider.
Gosh, you're so right about that. It is one of the best kept secrets, and it shouldn't be a secret, so good. So good. So many reasons. We could talk about that forever. We'll wrap up with Emily, but Clint, what do you think? Anything, last words?
No, I just got to give out just a bunch of thanks. Thanks to Emily and Bryan. I mean, they've made this journey so much fun, and just watching them grow into their positions and seeing how they've tackled everything with just, grace and humbleness and professionalism. I mean, it couldn't be a better team. And just our team, our internal team here, every single one of them. I mean, they're just freaking awesome to be a part of and to work with and go to battle with every day. And just that battle to just serve our clients as best we can. And just thanks to, you, Jason, for doing this. And I know how much you've invested into our industry, special thanks to you and all of my previous mentors, man, from Scott Addis to, just a lot of the local Big I agents and national folks that I've met over the years. I just got a lot of gratitude. This agency of the month thing is just so humbling and so appreciated. And, I'm just thankful, I guess.
Yes, go ahead. Well said, Clint. Emily?
Yeah, I agree with everything you both said. Thank you. I think that one of the keys to a successful agency or any successful business is to create a sense of belonging for the employees to feel like they are part of something bigger than themselves. Mm-hmm. We have a tremendous sense of community on our team, and we're part of a bunch of different communities. It's our agency community, like at the foundation in the center, the core. It's the logging community that we're so intimately connected to. It's the independent insurance agency community, all the other agents throughout the country. It's Idaho, our home base state, and all the towns that each of our people live in. We're all intentional about being part of these various communities, giving back, and just feeling like we belong here. And it's an important part of all of our lives.
That's fantastic. I saw that you guys do 2 hours a month. Is that you want your employees to do to volunteer?
Yeah, 2 paid hours.
I thought we do 2 hours a year. I mean, we are losers.
Come on, Jason.
We are losers. We are losers. I got to talk to my team, now that I know there's somebody else out there, and I thought to myself, I'm like, that's just something we created a long time ago and never really changed that. So I love that point. So, hey, thank you very much for Emily, Clint, and Bryan. I think they got a lot out of this. There was a lot of nuggets. I'm pretty sure when the AI goes through it to tell us how awesome it is and give us all the talking points, it's going to come back. And it's funny because some of the podcasts, not necessarily the Rough Notes podcast, but some of the podcasts that we do, they'll come back with 2 or 3. Sometimes they'll come back with 20 nuggets. It just shows the red meat that was given. And I think we did a lot here. So congratulations to you guys. Keep kicking butt. You're making us believe that there's more to Idaho than just potatoes. So, I mean, for real. So thank you very much. You guys lead. Most importantly, you guys lead by a great example to your community, right? It's our goal that people don't drive by our Brook buildings and say, well, my grandma or grandpa used to go there. I don't know what they do, right? Mm-hmm. It happens, but I think being more involved in the community can overcome that. You guys live that. So that's fantastic. So thank you very much for all that you do. Bryan,
thank you, Jason.
I wanted to talk more about your mom, but I didn't get a chance to. She's really the one that started all of this, if you really want to know the truth. So maybe next time or some other time we'll be able to do that. But thank you very much. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, hey, you Rough Notes listeners, you were blessed once again with getting something. And I want to label this for you. I want to kind of frame this up. Something that a wise man told me. I'm like Clint. I love listening to what the old wise generation, I guess, is say, the more veterans, because you learn a lot. And a gentleman told me one time, he said, Jason, he said, really, there's only 3 things that employees really, truly want to come work for you. And he said, and for you to keep them. And I think you guys embody all 3 of them. And number 1 was opportunity. That was the number 1 thing that most times whenever they're even doing studies out there, the person wants to know, especially the younger people, what is my track? What is my career path here? What am I able to hit, right? And I know that you guys drive that home, especially in the notes that I wasn't able to get to that I was able to read. The second one, which was the most important and encompasses a lot of things, was culture. It was something that I remember when him telling me this when I was in my late 20s, I'm thinking like I was one of those. It was like culture, right? But when you become a leader and you start to see your people and how they need to mesh together and how they need to work as a team and everything that Emily said, I think that's it. And actually, number 3 was money. Now, here's what actually I thought was amazing when he said this. It wasn't the 3 things he told me. This is what he told me. He said, Jason, you only have to have 2 of the 3 to be successful. But if you have 1 of the 3, you'll fail every time. And he said, if you have somebody who has a lot of opportunity and they work at a good place, they'll take a little bit less money, but if they don't have any opportunity and they don't have any culture, they better be paying me a lot of money for me to stay here. We've heard people say that, right? And we've heard that.
I believe
and
it.
So those were the 3 things. And once again, wise people telling me things. I really greatly appreciate that. And it's the reason why you guys are great. So all you Rough Notes listeners, once again, I was going to actually bring that up, but man, I had so many notes I wasn't able to get to, and I apologize for that. But I want you to know that Rough Notes, you knocked it out of the park again. Us agents in any industry knows that the best recognition we can get is those that we get from our peers. And yet, once again, you knocked it out of the park. You chose an agency that a lot of people wouldn't get to know up there in Idaho, and you pulled them right out in the center stage. And once again, knocked it out of the park, as I said. Thank you.